Good morning. I call on the member for Reid Bay to read prayers.
Good morning, let us pray. Almighty God, from whom all wisdom and power are derived, we beseech Thee so to direct and prosper the deliberations of the Parliament now assembled, that all things may be ordered upon the best and surest foundation for the glory of Thy name and for the safety, honour and welfare of the people of these islands. Bless our Sovereign, King Charles III, William, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Give grace to all who exercise authority in our Commonwealth, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us. Especially, we pray for the Governor of our islands, the Premier, the Speaker of the Parliament, the Leader of the Opposition, Ministers of the Cabinet, ex officio members, members of the Parliament, the Chief Justice and members of the Judiciary, that we may be enabled faithfully to perform the responsible duties of our high office. All this we ask for Thy great name's sake. Let us say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be Thy name, Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make His face shine upon us, and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up the light of His countenance upon us, and give us peace now and always. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Parliament is now called to order.
Administration of oaths or affirmations.
None.
Reading by the Honorable Speaker of Messages and Announcements.
Today, we continue to show respect, honor, and gratitude to the staff of UCCI, in particular because they are celebrating the 50th year anniversary. We thank you for your commitment to the education of our young adults to prepare them for the challenges of the workplace and life in general. The contribution of UCCI to opportunities for Caymanians to grasp and take their rightful place in our society and country should never be underestimated. Thank you for your service, and I challenge you to continue the growth and development of UCCI. When I call your name, would you please stand if you're here and remain standing? Paul Pickering, Dean, TVET. Mr. Miles, you see who I put at the top? Dr. Belinda Blessett Vincent, Dean, Business and Finance. Tracy Hargrave, Dean, STEM and Health. Genevieve Philip Durham, Dean of Social Services. Thomasin Deasy, Director, Marketing and Communications. Donette Goddard, Director, Student Life. I now invite the Minister of Education, if he wishes to say a few words, or do you wish to retain your voice for your presentation later on?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to thank you for your continued efforts to bring those in civic society and other organs of government into the workings of the Parliament. Certainly, I can say and commit to this Parliament that the reform of UCCI is going to be number one on my agenda after early childhood care and education. If there is one thing I regret from 12 years ago, is that I did not leave this institution on a footing that I believe, in my professional opinion, based on the needs of this economy, to position UCCI as a key tool for economic development is one. And I can assure this Parliament and the wider public that that mandate will be delivered upon. This is about students and the economy. And so I welcome those in the chamber, and I can assure anyone who believes in that mandate will have a very useful place at UCCI. Those that don't will not.
Thank you. Can we give them a round of applause, please? Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just rise briefly to join in welcoming the team here from UCCI and to thank them for their continued service to the country and to the future of the Cayman Islands through our young people. Thank you.
Thank you. You can have your seats, and you're welcome to stay as long as you want to see how your Parliament works. Thank you. Next item of business.
Personal explanations,
None.
presentation of papers and reports, plan and estimates for the 2026 and 2027 financial years to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Finance and Economic Development and Education and Training.
Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Development and Education and Training.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the following documents with respect to the government's 2026 and 2027 financial years. The annual plan and estimates for the government of the Cayman Islands, budget statements for ministries, portfolios and offices, purchase agreements for statutory authorities, government companies and non-governmental output suppliers, and ownership agreements for statutory authorities and government companies.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Minister wish to speak to the reports?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you invite me to speak on the second reading of the appropriation bill, which prepares further down on today's order paper, my budget address on the bill will refer to the details in the documents that have just been tabled. Therefore, I do not have much to say at this, anything further to say at this time. Mr. Speaker, the document has just been tabled. I thank you.
Thank you. Move to urgent questions.
Budget statements for the
No, go to urgent
2026.
questions. Go right down. He laid them all, so just
Okay.
go to urgent questions.
Yes, sir. Urgent questions,
None?
questions to members of the government,
None?
statement by members of the government,
I have received a request and granted to the Premier to make 2 statements this morning. Honourable Premier.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, a little over a week ago, Hurricane Melissa, the most powerful storm ever recorded to strike Jamaica, tore through western Jamaica with catastrophic force before moving toward eastern Cuba as a weakened, but still powerful, Category 3 hurricane. Heavy rains associated with the system also caused devastating flooding in Haiti. The images we have seen are heartbreaking. Entire communities flattened, families displaced, infrastructure destroyed, and tragically, lives lost. To the people of Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti, our thoughts and prayers are with you. The bonds, however, between the Cayman Islands and Jamaica run deeper than geography. They are woven into our families, our culture, our history. Many of us in this chamber and many Caymanians across our islands have spent the past several days desperately trying to reach loved ones in Jamaica. The anxiety, the fear, the relief when a call finally connects. These are the human dimensions of disaster that statistics can never capture. Mr. Speaker, this is why in the early morning of Thursday, the 30th of November, within hours of the all clear being sounded in Kingston, our Cayman Airways relief flight was the first international aircraft to land at Norman Manley International Airport, delivering US $200,000 in essential supplies. And Mr. Speaker, that relief flight was followed shortly by another Cayman Airways jet, which was the first commercial flight to return to Jamaica after the airport's reopening. I will never forget the incredible image of seeing 2 Cayman Airways planes on the ground at Norman Manley. The first 2 at the stands, sending a powerful message to the world of the deep and meaningful fraternal bonds between the peoples of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, I led that delegation alongside National Coalition for Caymanian Ministers, the Honorable Jay Ebanks, and the Honorable Nicholas DaCosta, and the opposition leader, Honorable Joey Hugh, demonstrating again a Cayman Islands that is unified in purpose. I thank the Deputy Premier, the Honorable Gary Ruddy, and his Ministry of Tourism, and our team at Cayman Airways for stepping up to the plate, not only with the initial relief and commercial flights, but for also continuing to add extra flights to Kingston to deliver relief supplies and to bring back passengers. I also extend special thanks to Dr. Joe Marzuka, Honorary Counselor for Jamaica in the Cayman Islands, whose invaluable assistance in organizing the trip ensured we could respond swiftly and effectively. His dedication to Jamaica, the land of his birth, and to Cayman, his current long-standing home, exemplifies the spirit of service we all aspire to. But that first response was only the beginning. Today, I am confirming for the parliamentary record that the government of the Cayman Islands has committed a total of US $1.2 million in relief supplies that will be shipped directly to Jamaican authorities. In addition to this, I place on record that across our islands, our community has mobilized with extraordinary passion and efficiency. To every single person and organization involved in this effort, from parliamentarians to civil and public servants and our wider community, you are showing the spirit and heart of our people. Thank you for showing Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the world what Caymankind truly means. Mr. Speaker, what we are providing is not so much charity, it's solidarity. It's family helping family. While government action is essential, what truly defines us as a country is how our people respond when disasters strike. Whether we're the ones taking the hit or whether someone else is receiving the blow. And yet, Mr. Speaker, even in the midst of devastation, there are lessons to be learned and innovations to be acknowledged. Case in point, Jamaica's forward-thinking approach to disaster risk management deserves special recognition. Through a World Bank-facilitated catastrophe bond that was announced in April last year, Jamaica secured US $150 million in parametric insurance coverage, a financial instrument specifically designed to deliver rapid, transparent relief when disaster strikes. I commend Jamaica's Prime Minister, the Honorable Andrew Holness, and his government, and Jamaica's former Minister of Finance, the Honorable Dr. Nigel Clark, who led these innovations during his time in office, for their foresight in building these layers of financial resiliency. It is precisely the kind of preparation that will enable Jamaica to rebuild stronger than before. Dr. Clark, who I have worked with on FATF matters and whom I've had the pleasure of meeting socially, is a wonderful example of the heights Caribbean people can achieve if we set our minds to our goals, as Dr. Clark is now a Deputy Managing Director of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. The sobering truth is, Mr. Speaker, that Hurricane Melissa could have easily tracked to the west and wreaked unthinkable damage upon the Cayman Islands. The devastation we witnessed in Jamaica could have easily been our own. This near miss must serve as a clarion call for our own preparedness. Like Jamaica, the Cayman Islands must develop and maintain layers of risk protection, comprehensive insurance mechanisms, emergency response systems, and innovative financial tools like catastrophe bonds. We cannot afford complacency. So, heaven forbid, if a disaster day comes, we must be ready to respond, to recover, and to rebuild swiftly. Our government readily learns from every example of disaster preparedness and recovery in our region and among neighbors further afield to ensure that the Cayman Islands has the resilient infrastructure necessary to protect our people, our economy, and our way of life. Mr. Speaker, recovery from a disaster of this magnitude is not measured in days or weeks, but in months and years. Homes must be reconstructed. Livelihoods must be restored. Roads and vital facilities must be rebuilt, and communities must heal. The Cayman Islands' commitment to Jamaica and to our other affected Caribbean neighbors will not end with this initial response. We will continue to assess needs and, as much as feasible, provide support through the long process of recovery and reconstruction. We will also engage with regional partners, including CARICOM and the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, to ensure coordinated, effective assistance. And we will continue to advocate at international fora for increased climate resiliency, disaster risk reduction, and support for small island developing states that face disproportionate risk from global warming. When Hurricane Ivan devastated us 21 years ago, we learned what it meant to lose everything and what it means to have neighbors who refuse to let you face that loss alone. Today, the Cayman Islands are privileged to be that neighbor for Jamaica, for Cuba, and for any country in our region facing the wrath of nature. In the Caribbean region, we are small islands, but we are large in spirit, larger still in compassion, gigantic in our commitment to one another. To our Jamaican family and friends suffering at this time, remember the word of God in Isaiah 41:10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. We in the Cayman Islands know your strength and courage, and we will walk beside you on the long road to recovery. Cayman stands with Jamaica today, tomorrow, and for as long as it takes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just to edit for the Hansards, one note, the flight was on the 30th of October rather than November. God bless the Cayman Islands, and may God bless Jamaica and the wider Caribbean.
You can give the second statement now.
Good morning again, Mr. Speaker. Members of government, members of the opposition, civil and public servants, and importantly, the people of the Cayman Islands. Good morning. Mr. Speaker, there is an actuality you know like the back of your hand. Budgets are more than spreadsheets and tables of numbers. Throughout history, they have reflected a country's values and priorities, its maturity, and its ability to govern not by impulse, but by intention. Centuries ago, during the Middle Ages, when kings first convened parliaments to approve expenditures, their intent was to balance accounts and also lay the foundation for democratic accountability. And in the centuries that followed, nations could either rise or fall on the strength of their financial wisdom. During the industrial age, budgets became blueprints for advancement, charting the paths of railways, public schools, social safety nets that transformed modern life. And during crises, such as famously with former US President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal to address the Great Depression, budgets required financial prudence and principled vision in order to focus resources on community renewal. At the time, Roosevelt held the radical notion that government needed to stabilize and rationalize the economy which was a significant departure from his predecessors and resulted in a new concept of community and social obligation. Notably, in Roosevelt's second inaugural address in 1937, he stated, quote, "We refused to leave the problems of our common welfare to be solved by the winds of chance and the hurricanes of disaster," end quote. And so, Mr. Speaker, a budget really is history in the making expressed in numbers. It is where ideals meet realities and where tomorrow takes shape through the choices we make today. This is the NCFC's government's first budget for the people of the Cayman Islands. Like Roosevelt's New Deal approach, it is founded in the financial prudence and principled vision primarily to benefit the Caymanian community at home and abroad. This is what our people have called for in their government. Because it is financially prudent, this budget most certainly is not numbers on a page, hastily or recklessly thrown together for the sake of meeting a legal requirement or deadline. Moreover, the principled vision upon which this budget is grounded is clearly articulated for all to see in the NCFC's coalition agreement's foundational values, Mr. Speaker. 1, integrity. 2, evidence-based decision-making. 3, innovation. 4, respect. 5, responsibility. 6, courage. And 7, cohesion. Today we put before this honorable House and before the good people of our islands a budget that reflects both heart and mind, held in balance with one another. The NCFC government's proposed $1.25 billion spend for each of 2026 and 2027 is a transformative blueprint for a stronger, fairer Cayman, one that places our people first. Over the past weeks, as government and public servants collaborated to prepare this budget, we returned again and again to a central conviction. The cost of delay is too great, and the challenges before us are too urgent for us to approach this process with anything less than integrity and responsibility. This budget is born of necessity, shaped by vision, and grounded in reality, because the status quo is no longer an option. Yes, we acknowledge that Cayman recorded strong economic metrics from 2009 through 2005. Looking at those numbers, 2025, looking at those numbers, one could truthfully say our country enjoyed growth, prosperity in financial services, and expansion in construction and tourism. We had the dollars. Yet through most of that time period, we were hyper-focused on balance sheets and bank accounts, but neglected building wealth in our grassroots communities. In doing so, our community's social metrics suffered. The human measures that would have given a clearer picture of Cayman's socio-economic position. The uncomfortable reality is this: we have done relatively little to improve life for average Caymanians. The challenges we face did not arise in a single term. They did not appear overnight. They are the result of years of complacency, deferral, and political convenience. Big problems kicked down the road. Today, we are joined by problems that once seemed small, but now loom large. The growth we celebrated between 2009 and 2025 has left a social deficit in housing, access to health care, opportunity, infrastructure, and community cohesion. Too many Caymanians have been left behind. Mr. Speaker, because big-ticket items were deferred term after term, this government inherited an affordability crisis. The cost of living is beyond ordinary earnings. A housing shortage affecting lower to middle-income Caymanians, even those with more than one income stream. Young Caymanians locked out of entry-level opportunities. Older Caymanians with woefully inadequate retirement income in their golden years. Outdated immigration and public service systems. Neglected infrastructure and environmental vulnerabilities. And weakened social cohesion and community resilience. As a country, as a people, we cannot afford to ignore or delay positive action any longer. Inaction will cause us to slide further backwards. This government was given the mandate to restore the Caymanian community. And that's exactly what we will do with resolve and innovation to unify our people once again. This budget, Mr. Speaker, is our pledge to the people. Mr. Speaker, today, the good work of my esteemed cabinet colleagues and their teams on the 26-27 budget will be presented to this honorable House and to our people by the Minister for Finance and Economic Development, the Honorable Ralston Anglin. As the public has come to expect, he will ably and forcefully outline the forecast revenues and expenditures through which this government plans to begin resolving our beloved country's long-standing issues using innovative and evidence-driven approaches. I ask the public to pay keen attention to three key areas that the Honorable Minister will address. Firstly, revenue projections. Total forecast revenues for 26-27. Key revenue drivers and enhanced compliance and collection efficiencies. Mr. Speaker, this budget includes new revenue measures which are projected to generate approximately an additional $172.4 million in operating revenues over the budget period, $72.5 million in 2026, and approximately $99.9 million in 2027. The new revenue measures are related to financial service fees, primarily legal and accountant practitioner fees, fund annual return filing fees, exempted limited partnership, and Class A bank license fees. Two, also domestic fees, mainly from stamp duty on high-end land transfers and immigration fees, and various trade and business license fees, mainly from special economic zone trade certificate fees and local company control license fees. Secondly, expenditure framework. Total expenditure expected for 26 and 27. Strategic allocation across 7 outcome areas and emphasis on value for money and measurable results. And lastly, fiscal responsibility indicators. Cayman's projected surplus and compliance with the UK's framework for fiscal responsibility. As the Honourable Minister speaks, I ask this Honourable House and the public to remember this: fiscal responsibility and social investment do not compete. They complement each other. Fiscal responsibility is about stewarding resources wisely so they yield the greatest long-term benefit. For any good government, that means investing in your people, the most powerful asset any country possesses. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, through this government's fiscal responsibility, we are laying the foundation for sustainable prosperity by prudently funding education, healthcare, infrastructure, and innovation. We know these truths. A well-educated workforce drives productivity. A healthy population strengthens economic stability. And modern infrastructure fuels growth. These investments, guided by disciplined budgeting, innovation, and transparency, create a cycle where opportunity expands, revenue grows, and importantly, dependency diminishes. As much as possible, we want our people to confidently stand on their own 2 feet, Mr. Speaker, because this is the mark of a strong, resilient people. Fiscal discipline ensures that social spending is not squandered, but is strategic, targeted toward programs that lift our people and bolster the economy. The balance between responsibility and compassion is where the strength of a nation is tested and proven. Mr. Speaker, when this government looks across the islands, we see the challenges, but we also see opportunity. We believe, with courage and clarity, that the 19 men and women in this House, our private sector, our public service, and our people can steer our country into a brighter, more stable, and more fulfilling future. Moreover, we confidently believe that Caymanians can be empowered and equipped to participate fully in a modern, globally competitive Cayman. No Caymanian should be forced to leave these beloved islands, the homeland they cherish, because they could not find viable opportunities here. In fact, it should be the other way around, that viable opportunities are aligned for them to take advantage of from entry level to executive suite. In government's strategic policy statement, approved by this House on 17th of October, we outlined 7 broad outcomes that directly address the priority issues this country faces. These outcomes are the heart of the budget. They are the transition from vision to action. Mr. Speaker, while ministers will speak during this meeting in detail to their budget allocations, as supported by their parliamentary secretaries, allow me to provide overall key details now. This $1.2 billion budget is designed to make substantial progress in achieving the 7 broad outcomes in our strategic policy statement. 1, strong education and immigration systems that support a highly skilled and adaptable Caymanian population. 2, sustainable physical development that prioritizes affordable housing, ensures resilient infrastructure, and protects nature. 3, a diversified, resilient economy that supports prosperity and innovation. 4, healthy and empowered people with improved quality of life for all ages. 5, a cohesive society that protects and institutionalizes Caymanian identity and culture. 6, efficient, effective, accountable, and people-centered public services. 7, a secure, well-governed country demonstrated by transparent governance and robust public safety systems. Mr. Speaker, this budget is transparent in its allocations. Education and health receive the largest portions of our investment because they are the foundation of everything else we hope to achieve. Education, Mr. Speaker, 17% of our total 26 budget, more than $250 million, which includes capital allocations, is allocated to education. This investment targets workforce skills development, infrastructure improvement, teacher training, and program enhancements that will deliver long-term economic growth and opportunities for Caymanians. Health, environment, and sustainability, 13% of the budget, almost $193 million, which includes capital allocations, will help ensure robust health systems, public and environmental health programs, and preservation of our natural environment for this and future generations. This allocation addresses immediate and longer-term health needs while building climate change resiliency and protecting the natural beauty that defines our islands. Mr. Speaker, these investments reflect our values. They demonstrate that this government measures success not by how much wealth we generate, but by how many lives we strengthen and how well we care for those who need us most. Our investments include increased funding for workforce programs. Funding for education and workforce development will double from $1.4 million in 25 to $3.07 million by 2027. Primary education funding boost, an additional $4 million for primary education services will, among other things, fund the addition of nursery and reception classes in some primary schools starting in 2026. Enhancements in secondary education. Secondary education receives an extra $4 million in 26 for a curriculum improvements and program availability. Support for our disabled. Funding for our disability programs jumps from $1.7 million in 25 to $3.16 million in 2026, focusing on access to vocational training and recreational programming. 5, after-school programs for youth. $1.5 million will target after-school programs in each of 26 and 27 to engage students positively and provide safe activities for at-risk students. 6, administration of new affordable housing initiative. This program provides administrative oversight and support services for low-income Caymanian families seeking affordable housing. We're increasing the funding by $450,000 to $680,000 in both 26 and 27. 7, administration of the Build on Your Own Property program. This initiative assists Caymanian families who wish to construct homes on property they already own, providing guidance and support throughout the building process. The funding for this will jump from $20,000 to $340,000 in 26 and 27. Environmental services and research. This funding supports the development and maintenance of a world-class environmental protection framework, including conservation efforts, environmental monitoring and reporting, compliance with local and international regulations, and oil spill contingency planning. It provides operational support for sustainable resource management and environmental stewardship. We're increasing the funding from $6.7 million to $8 million in 26 and $8.5 million in 2027. The overall allocation for financial assistance to families is being expanded with an additional $4.6 million allocated in 2026, rising from $18.2 million in 2025 to $22.8 million in 2026 and nearly $23.4 million in 2027. Increase the overall budget allocation for care of indigent and disabled elderly persons, rising from $2 million to $2.7 million in 26 and 27, reflecting the realities of this area of assistance. Support for the Meals on Wheels program in Grand Cayman is substantially boosted from $175,000 to $500,000 to better provide meals for older persons in need. We're increasing the spend on our country's submarine cable solution, where a third-party operator is competitively selected to build, own, operate, and collect revenue for a new submarine cable in return for a grant from $180,000 to $1 million in 2026 and another $1 million in 2027. Mr. Speaker, this budget represents a turning point for the Cayman Islands. It is the end of kicking problems down the road, confronting inherited challenges with courage and evidence-based solutions, a shift from growth at any cost to sustainable development, strategic investment of $1.2 billion across 7 transformative outcomes, 5, fiscal responsibility demonstrated through projected surpluses and financial compliance with all fiscal indicators. To summarize, the big-ticket items this budget addresses: lowering the cost of living, lowering the cost of health care, overhauling our education system by truly investing in early childhood care and education, and strategically reforming further and post-secondary education to align with the opportunities in the economy. Resolving the affordable housing crisis that has affected generations of Caymanian, modernizing immigration, investing in vital infrastructure, addressing environmental deterioration and beach erosion, and driving digital transformation and modernization of government services. Considering some of our capital needs, Mr. Speaker, some may ask, how are we as a country going to fund all this? This, Mr. Speaker, is another example where this government will be innovative by advancing the use of public-private partnerships and other ways to finance our major projects. As I said earlier, Mr. Speaker, we must address these challenges together as a country. But as government leaders, I ask the public to hold us accountable. To support this, government commits to providing the people with evidence-based targets and evaluation frameworks, quarterly public reports on financial and performance outcomes, oversight by Parliament, civil society, and independent auditors, and deliver or explain framework for all ministries and agencies. So the people of the Cayman Islands expect results. Insist on them. But we also ask that you actively participate in this courageous transformation of our country. Support the long-term vision, knowing that real change requires discipline, patience, and a shared effort. Mr. Speaker, we have a choice. The people of the Cayman Islands have a choice. We can continue the old ways, kicking problems down the road, favoring expediency over evidence, allowing gaps to widen between rich and poor, between Caymanians and opportunity, or we can choose transformation. When I spoke to the Chamber of Commerce on the 23rd of October, several hundred business leaders across a range of industries stood up and pledged their support to helping us build a stronger, fairer Cayman. They committed to joining us and working with us to find solutions to some of our most pressing issues. This budget is our choice. It says we will no longer defer the difficult decisions. We will no longer accept a status quo that leaves too many Caymanians behind. Mr. Speaker, I call on every member of this honorable House to support this transformative budget. I call on the people of the Cayman Islands to hold us accountable for delivering on these commitments. I call on our public service to embrace this transformation with professionalism, pace, and passionate dedication. I call on our business community to partner with us in building a stronger, more inclusive economy. And I call on every Caymanian to believe that advancement is possible, that our best days are ahead, and that together we can build the Cayman Islands our children and their children deserve. As this government has publicly said before, Mr. Speaker, we will measure our success not by how many announcements we make, but by how many lives we strengthen. May God bless this honorable House, and may God continue to bless our beloved Cayman Islands. Thank you.
Presentation of petitions. None. Obituary and other ceremonial speeches.
I have received notice for the member for Georgetown East that he would like to mention one member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over the past month, we've actually had two significant deaths in our community of Georgetown East. First person I wanted to mention, Mr. Speaker, is that of Reverend Joe Crawford, who passed away about a month ago. And the second being Mr. Siebert Wood, who, long-standing member of our community. Both of them have contributed significantly to this country and to its development and to people. And they are sadly missed today. And I just wanted to send condolences to Reverend Crawford's widow and Mr. Siebert's widow, Miss Aileen Wood, from us here within the Parliament, and extend to them both our deepest condolences and prayers that they will find strength and comfort to make it through these most difficult times for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I invite members to stand for a minute of silence of respect and condolences. Starting now. Thank you. Please be seated. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you would indulge me, I just want to first off say thank you to the Premier and the government for including myself and the opposition in the efforts in offering our support to our brothers and sisters in Jamaica. And the result has shown that we can overcome political differences when it comes to combining our efforts to help those who are in need, and in particular, in this case, our brothers and sisters. Mr. Speaker, I also wanted to take an opportunity to recognize that a lot of persons within our community, and those in particular in the Filipino community amongst us, are this morning and over the last day or so have been struggling to deal with the Typhoon Kalamiji, which killed 114 people in Cebu in the Philippines. And there are a lot of families here who are still seeking to make contact with their loved ones overseas. And so I would like to also recognize this morning that our thoughts and prayers are with them and the people of the Philippines. Thank you.
Raising of matters of privilege.
None?
Other business.
None?
Government business.
Yeah. Let the record reflect that there is no private member's business for the day, so therefore we will do government business.
Bills. First reading. The Appropriation Financial Years 2026 and 2027 Bill 2025.
Honorable Minister of Finance and Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I make to move the second reading.
No, we have to do the first reading first.
She can do the first reading.
We have to do the first reading. The clerk, yeah, okay. The bill has been deemed to have been read the first time and is set down for a second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I certainly didn't want to jump ahead of myself. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of a bill entitled The Appropriation Financial Years 2026 and 2027 Bill 2025.
The bill has been duly moved. Does the mover wish to speak thereto?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for inviting me to speak to the second reading of the Appropriation 2026-2027 Bill. Mr. Speaker, it is with great humility that I rise in this honorable chamber to deliver what I believe history will prove to be a budget that is going to be remembered as a key turning point, not because of its fiscal prudence, but because, Mr. Speaker, it is a responsible path to a stronger tomorrow, a pragmatic approach to addressing the public's needs. Mr. Speaker, in managing the country's finances, government must look candidly at the resources we possess, seek out opportunities, assess the challenges we face, and consider the needs of our people. That responsibility carries special weight in small jurisdictions like ours, where every decision, every dollar, and every policy directly touches our families, our schools, and our shared future. This, Mr. Speaker, I believe to be a budget that is going to be hailed as a true turning point. I take great pride in saying that the team on the government bench, strongly supported by the public service, has been able to craft a way forward that Caymanians can feel justly proud of. But more importantly, Caymanians will feel a positive impact from. We are guided, Mr. Speaker, on this path to a stronger tomorrow by ensuring that we use a pragmatic approach to address the public needs. And this budget reflects a careful balance between that fiscal prudence and the duty of care that we owe to all of our citizens. It is about ensuring that our schools are equipped, our elderly are supported, our environment is protected, the safety and security of our borders and communities is strengthened, and, most importantly, our economy remains strong to all global challenges. For Mr. Speaker, we can have a great wish list, but if we do not have a strong economy to fund the critical needs, then, Mr. Speaker, where will we be? Caymanians have always built strong foundations through sensible choices and shared sacrifices, and this budget continues that proud tradition, a steadfast, pragmatic path forward toward stronger and a more secure Cayman Islands for all. Mr. Speaker, before presenting the specific numbers and policy measures that define this budget, it is essential that we first take stock on where we stand today. A responsible government must build every plan for the future in an honest assessment of present realities. The Cayman Islands, like other jurisdictions, has been impacted by an ever-changing and challenging global environment, yet our fiscal position has remained sound, our reserves sufficient, and our overall economy resilient. This firm foundation gives us the confidence to meet current obligations, sustain essential investments, and chart a prudent path forward as we enter our next budget cycle. The 2025 financial year, Mr. Speaker, has been one of disciplined recovery and steady progress. Through prudent management and effective expenditure control, the Cayman Islands has restored stability to the public finances while continuing to meet the needs of our people. Revenues have performed strongly across key sectors, such as financial services and real estate. Expenditures have been contained through tighter governance, and reserves remain above the thresholds required by our framework for fiscal responsibility. These outcomes demonstrate that sound fiscal management works, and that when we plan responsibly, Caymanians benefit. It is from this position of strength and stability that we now turn to the financial forecasts for 2025, which provide the foundations for the 2026 to 2027 budget now before this Honourable House. Mr. Speaker, accuracy in both budgeting and forecasting are essential to achieving, respectively, a credible budget and reasonable end-of-year projections once a financial year has started. The Ministry of Finance and Economic Development is leading the strengthening of our financial forecasting capabilities across the public sector and will initiate a program to improve forecasting across government. It is worth repeating, Mr. Speaker, a precursor to realistic end-of-year forecasting once a financial year starts is establishing a realistic budget before a financial year begins. Revenue estimates have been enhanced through a three-pronged approach using forecasts from the government's revenue unit, estimates from chief officers and chief financial officers of ministries, portfolios, and offices, and the Economic and Statistics Office, or the ESO. The ESO, with its professional economists, have a wealth of experience in revenue and economic forecasting, drawing upon technical guidance and support from regional and international institutions. In the Cayman Islands, our revenue inflows generally follow the same path as our gross domestic product, or GDP, over the years, and the links are incredibly strong. In simple terms, when GDP goes up, revenue does too. This connection is so close that the correlation between government's revenues and the island's GDP has been calculated at a 99.9% interrelation, indicating that government's revenues and the island's nominal GDP move in almost perfect unison. So, when projecting future revenues, a first step is to forecast GDP. This will allow the government to confidently project future revenue levels. Mr. Speaker, the ESO reassesses and will revise when needed the GDP forecasts at least 4 times per year. Therefore, going forward, revenue forecasts will be revised multiple times per year. Let's keep in mind that the world's economy is fast-moving and constantly evolving. So projecting for future years will always be influenced by factors professionals might not be aware of today. For this reason, government will regularly update its revenue estimates, its GDP calculations, and other economic forecasts in order to ensure that projections take account of new information and previously unforeseen developments. To complement our existing quarterly financial reporting regime, the government will institute a quarterly forecasting cycle that will deploy predictive analytics which integrates macroeconomic indicators, historical collection patterns, seasonality, and the impacts of policy decisions. The enhanced forecasting will require each ministry, portfolio, and office to submit updated revenue and expenditure projections supported by explanations of material variances from expected results. This analysis will be consolidated by the Treasury Department. The review process will require chief officers and chief financial officers to explain and document their revised forecasts. The completed analysis will be presented to caucus and onward onto Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, these changes will improve confidence in forward estimates, enable faster quarterly adjustments, and ultimately deliver better outcomes for the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, before I provide the details of the 2026-2027 budget and the government plans in those years, let me provide a brief update of the current state of public finances and forecast to the end of financial year 31st December 2025. Operating revenues are forecast to be $1.184 billion, which is some $48 million higher than the estimate on the original 2025 budget. The higher than budgeted operating revenues are mainly due to favorable variances in financial services and real estate related revenues. Mr. Speaker, operating and finance expenses for core government are forecast to be $1.174 billion for 2025, which is $90.9 million greater than the original budget of $1.083 billion. The major drivers for the increased operating expenditures are outputs from non-governmental suppliers are anticipated to be $45.1 million higher than originally budgeted, mainly due to the appropriation NGS 55, tertiary level medical care at various local and overseas providers for uninsured, underinsured, and indigent persons being significantly under budgeted in the 2025 original budget. Outputs from statutory authorities and government companies are projected to be $25.3 million more than the original budget, primarily due to increased numbers of medically indigent persons requiring primary and secondary level medical care at the Health Services Authority. Transfer payments are forecast to be $40.4 million more than budget due to increases in scholarships and financial assistance for elderly, disabled, seafarers, and veterans. And lastly, statutory authority and government companies are forecast to have a net operating deficit of $13.1 million at the end of 31st December 2025 compared to an original budgeted deficit of $2 million. The accumulated results of all these changes is that core government is now forced to achieve an operating surplus of $10.3 million, which is $40.9 million less than the original budgeted operating surplus of $53.2 million. Core government cash balances at 31st December 2025 are forecast to be $414.2 million, which is $2.1 million better than the $412.1 that was originally budgeted in 2023 when the 2025 budget was prepared. Overall, the 2025 projections mean that the government is forecast to be in full compliance with the principles of responsible financial management and the FFR. Core government's forecast operating surplus is expected to be $10.3 million. Net worth is forecast to be positive at $2.5 billion. The debt service ratio will be less than the 10% of core government revenue at a projected 6.2%. The net debt ratio is forecast to be less than the maximum allowed of 80% of core government's operating revenue at an estimated 17.2%, and cash reserves at 31st December are forecast to be 97.3 days of operating expenses, which is more than the minimum requirement of 90 days. Mr. Speaker, these results are not just evidence of fiscal discipline. They show that responsible planning creates real opportunities for our people. Every surplus, every controlled expense, and every investment is designed to meet the practical needs: better education, more comprehensive health care, safer roads, and stronger communities. That is what we mean by a pragmatic approach to addressing the public's needs. Mr. Speaker, I turn to the global economic outlook. The International Monetary Fund projects global growth of 3% in 2025, increasing slightly to 3.1% in 2026, supported by stronger consumer demand in the United States of America and investments in emerging technologies. Nonetheless, the world economy continues to face headwinds from supply chain fragility, geopolitical tensions, and changing tariff measures among major economies, factors which could place upward pressure on inflation and dampen global trade. The Cayman Islands Economic Outlook 2025 to 2028. The economic growth is projected at 2.6% in 2025, easing to 2.2% in 2026, before rebounding modestly to 2.5% in 2027. Inflation is expected to average around 2.4%, reflecting continued price pressures, while unemployment should remain low at roughly 2.8 to 3%. Cayman's current account deficit, typically for small open economies, is forecast to widen about 14% of GDP over the medium term, reflecting high import dependency and sustained capital investment. The economic forecasts assume continued resilience in financial services, with insurance and fund registrations expanding, and a further strengthening in stay-over tourism. Construction activity is projected to moderate, yet remain buoyed by major public infrastructure and housing projects. Mr. Speaker, while global opportunities from trade protectionism to climate impacts present ongoing risks, Cayman's diversified service economy, prudent fiscal management, and strong human capital development fundamentals provide a solid foundation for sustained growth. Through continued discipline and investment in resilience, this government remains confident that the Cayman Islands will maintain its standings as one of the region's strongest and most stable economies. Mr. Speaker, now turning to the details of the 2026 and 2027 budget. Operating revenue for 2026 is forecast to be $1.26 billion, with $1.2 billion being coercive revenue and the balance of $57.5 million in sales of goods and services, investment revenue, donations, and other operating revenue. In 2027, operating revenue is forecast to be $1.32 billion, with $1.27 billion in coercive revenue and the balance of $59.2 million in sales of services, investment revenue, donations, and other operating revenue. Mr. Speaker, the revenue forecast includes new revenue measures which are projected to yield an additional revenues of $72.5 million in 2026 and $99.9 million in 2027. The new revenue measures are related to financial services fees, primarily legal and accountant practitioner fees, fund annual return filing fees, exempted limited partnership and corporate service providers fees. Domestic fees, mainly for stamp duty on high-end real estate transfers and a number of immigration fees, and various trader license fees, mainly from the Special Economic Zone trade certificate fees and local company control fees. Operating and financing expenses in 2026 is forecast to be $1.25 billion and $1.29 billion in 2027. Mr. Speaker, the major cost drivers of the operating and finance expenses are: personnel costs are budgeted to be $569.3 million in 2026 and $585.3 million in 2027 to fund salaries, pension, and health insurance for civil servants. Supplies and consumables are budgeted to be $194.1 million and $201.9 million in 2026 and 2027, respectively. And depreciation is projected to be $72.5 million in 2026 and $74.4 million in 2027, and reflects the increase in the value of government's assets as various capital projects are completed. Mr. Speaker, it is important to remind the honourable members and the general public that depreciation is a non-cash expenditure item which recognizes the cost of assets through the operating statement in a systematic way, in accordance with the financial reporting standards or accounting rules over the expected useful life of the assets. Mr. Speaker, another cost driver of the operating expenditures will be financing costs. As I mentioned earlier, the 2026 and 2027 budget allows the government to borrow up to $124 million in 2026 and a further $112 million in 2027, for a total of $236 million over the 2 financial years. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to emphasize that the proposed borrowings of $226 million will only be used to fund the government's capital program over the 2026 and 2027 financial years, and will not be used to fund operating expenditures, as the latter is adequately funded by operating revenues. The government's debt to GDP ratio averages 8.5% over the 2026 to 2027 budget period, which is an enviable metric that few countries in the world can match. Over the 2026-2027 budget period, the government will continue to keenly monitor its cash reserves and cash needs, and will only draw down on the loan funds if and when it is absolutely necessary to do so. As a result of existing and new borrowings, the government is expected to incur financing costs of up to $21.5 million in 2026 and 30.7 million in 2027. These expenses cover the interest payments and other financing costs associated with core government's portfolio of debt. If the proposed borrowings of 236 million are drawn down, the government end-of-year debt balances will be approximately 578.9 million in 2026 and 633.7 million in 2027. Mr. Speaker, government will continue to honor its obligations to repay debt of approximately 50.4 million and 57.2 million to be repaid in 2026 and 2027, respectively. Mr. Speaker, as it relates to debt, let me remind honorable members of this House and the wider public, just as we do in our personal lives, when we have significant and meaningful capital infrastructure that is required, such as building a home, people borrow, we borrow. There would be very few people on this planet that through the earnings they make from their salaries and or investment income would be able to fund significant capital expenditures such as a home. Therefore, you borrow. However, you borrow within the limits of what you can afford and what is prudent. So too is the government's actions over the 2026 and 2027 fiscal years. Outputs from statutory authorities and government companies are expected to total 224 million in 2026 and 228.9 million in 2027. The budget in this category will be used to fund the following: 77.6 million in 2026 and 83.9 million in 2027 to Cineco for the provision of health insurance benefits for civil servants, civil service pensioners, and qualified seafarers and veterans. 65.2 million in 2026 and 62.4 million in 2027 to the Health Service Authority for the provision of various medical services to the community. 32.8 million in 2026 and 33.8 million in 2027 to the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority for enhanced regulatory capacity to keep abreast of an ever-changing international regulatory regime. And 18.6 million in 2026 and 2027 to Cayman Airways Limited for the provision of international airlift to the Cayman Islands from strategic tourism markets and domestic airlift between our three islands. Outputs from non-governmental output suppliers are expected to be 72.5 million in 2026 and 72.6 million in 2027. The major items in this category are 43 million in 2026 and 2027 for tertiary medical care at various local and overseas providers for uninsured, underinsured, and indigent persons. 9 million in 2026 and 2027 for the public school meals program. 3 million in 2026 and 2027 in respect to legal aid services, and 2.8 million per year in 2026 and 2027 to care for the indigent and disabled elderly persons. Transfer payments are forecast to be $82 million in 2026 and 2027. These funds will be used to deliver critical social programs that support our young people in achieving their educational goals and provide vital financial support to the most vulnerable in our society. The major transfer payment budgeted in 2026 and 2027 are 37.3 million in 2026 and 37 million in 2027 for local and overseas scholarships, 25.1 million in 2026 and 25.6 million in 2027 for financial assistance and home repairs to support families and households in our communities. 10 million in 2026 and 2027 for ex gratia payments to approximately 975 seamen and veterans, and $2.5 million per year in 2026 and 2027 for youth, sports, and heritage programs. Collectively, Mr. Speaker, statutory authorities and government companies are forecast to incur net deficits of $4.5 million in 2026 and $7.2 million in 2027. Most notably, the Cayman Islands Airports Authority is forecast operating surpluses of $19.6 million in 2026 and $21.7 million in 2027. Cayman Airways is forecast operating deficits in 2026 of $16.3 million and $16.2 million in 2027, and the Cayman Turtle Conservation and Education Center Limited is forecast operating deficits of $8.5 million in 2026 and $8.8 million in 2027. For 2026, when considering the forecast operating revenues of $1.26 billion and the forecast operating and finance expenses of $1.25 billion, core government is forecast to earn an operating surplus of $11.1 million. Factoring in the forecast 4.5 operating deficit of public entities, the entire public sector is forecast to have an overall net surplus of $6.7 million in 2026. For 2027, when considering the forecast operating revenues of $1.32 billion and operating and financing expenses of $1.29 billion, core government is forecast to earn an operating surplus of $37.7 million. Factoring in the forecast $7.2 million operating deficit of public entities, the entire public sector is forecast to have an overall net surplus of $30.5 million in 2027. Mr. Speaker, as was outlined during the strategic policy phase of the budget process, I alerted this Honourable House to the fact that any material changes or variances between the SPS estimates and the final budget would be in the area of revenues, as we at that point had not completed all of the work in the revenue forecast projections. And so, Mr. Speaker, these results are through careful analysis, conservative estimates that we believe the government will earn over the next 2 fiscal years. And so, whilst these surpluses may not be as large as those in previous years' budgets delivered to this Honourable House, they are through careful and honest budgeting. They are through funding NGS 55, HEA2, TP41, and TP30 at levels that reflect the true cost of those outputs. And so, Mr. Speaker, I feel extremely confident that this budget is a truthful budget, a budget that will be one that will set the standard for all future budgets and those that will be delivered to this Honourable House. The government intends to make total capital investments of approximately $139.5 million in 2026 and a further $125.3 in 2027. These investments will be funded largely from borrowings. The government's capital investments reflect the theme of this budget in action: responsible choices creating lasting benefits. I repeat, responsible choices creating lasting benefits. Schools, healthcare facilities, housing, and infrastructure projects are being advanced not for extravagance, but because they strengthen tomorrow's Cayman, one where families thrive, education expands opportunity, and resilience is built into our national foundation. Mr. Speaker, capital investments into ministries and portfolios and offices are approximately $111.3 million in 2026 and a further $97.9 million in 2027. The major investments in this category include $21.4 million in 2026 and $19.4 million in 2027 for the completion of the new high school in Kimmenbrack and the expansion of education facilities at the Sir Johnny Cumber Primary School and the Joanna Clark Primary School. $14.1 million in 2026 and $13.4 million in 2027 for the expansion, maintenance, and improvements to our road network. $15 million in 2026 and $15.8 million in 2027 for various infrastructure and development projects. $1.6 million per year in 2026 and 2027 for land acquisition for agriculture purposes and conservation of Cayman's natural environment. In addition, the government is also planning to make capital investments into public entities, totaling $28.2 million in 2026 and a further $27.4 million in 2027. These investments include $10.5 million in 2026 and $8.5 million in 2027 to Cayman Airways Limited to cover debt, servicing, and operating expenditures, $8 million in 2026 and $7 million in 2027 to the National Housing Development Trust to cover debt servicing obligations and the construction of affordable homes, and $5 million in 2026 and $4 million in 2027 to the Cayman Turtle Conservation and Education Center Limited to cover operating losses. With respect to compliance with the principles of responsible financial management set out in the Public Management and Finance Act and the Framework for Fiscal Responsibility, the 2026-2027 budget forecasts the following levels of compliance with these principles. Net operating results should be positive. For 2026 and 2027, compliance is achieved as the government is forecast to record net operating surpluses of $11.1 million in 2026 and $37.7 million in 2027, respectively. Net worth should be positive. The government's net worth is forecast to be $2.5 billion at the end of 2026 and 2027, respectively. Debt servicing, that is the annual payments of interest and principal related to all public sector borrowing commitments, should be not more than 10% of core government's revenue. The core government is forecast to have debt servicing ratios of 6.5% in 2026 and 7.4% in 2027. Net debt, the total debt of core government plus the weighted average debt balance of public entities less government's liquid assets should be not more than 80% of core government's revenues for the fiscal year. The net debt ratio is forecast to be 23.4% in 2026 and 24.2% in 2027, which is well below the 80% threshold. And finally, cash reserves. The unrestricted cash reserves, that is the operating bank account and general reserves of core government measured at the lowest point in the fiscal period, should be sufficient to cover 90 days of core government's estimated operating expenditures. For 2026, the government is forecast to have sufficient cash reserves to cover approximately 91.6 days of operating expenditures at the lowest point during the fiscal year. In 2027, it's forecast to have $96.3 million of cash reserves. Both years, Mr. Speaker, are above the 90-day requirement. Looking forward, Mr. Speaker, our government continues to advance the modernization of the public financial management system to ensure that every dollar spent delivers meaningful results for the people of the Cayman Islands. We are therefore considering a series of amendments to the Public Management and Finance Act 2020 revision and the Framework for Fiscal Responsibility to support a modern, outcome-based approach to budgeting, strengthen accountability, and enhance fiscal efficiency. Transition to outcome-based budgeting. First, we will transition from the current output-based budgeting model to an outcome-based budgeting framework. This shift will link public resources directly to the results and outcomes we seek to achieve, ensuring that government spending is measured not just by activity, but by its real impacts on our communities. This reform will strengthen alignment between national priorities, budget allocations, and results achieved, enhancing transparency, evidence-based policymaking, and accountability. Mr. Speaker, we have made significant progress with this project. We have developed a comprehensive framework that sets out the systematic and structured approach to financial planning, resource allocation, and performance monitoring. Late last year, early this year, all government agencies, including statutory authorities and government companies, attended workshops to develop their service inventories and key performance measures, or KPIs. These KPIs will track progress toward the achievement of outcomes. Mr. Speaker, we are currently in the process of reviewing the Public Management and Finance Act to make amendments to allow for the focus on outcomes and to promote transparency and accountability on how funds are spent. Mr. Speaker, we are aiming to effect the transition to outcome-based budgeting by the 2028-2029 budget. Mr. Speaker, we are also proposing to discontinue the separation of the strategic policy statement and integrate its contents directly into the main budget documentation. This change will eliminate duplication, reduce administrative burden, and provide Parliament and the public with a more comprehensive budget documentation system that clearly sets out our fiscal strategy, outcomes, and compliance with the framework for fiscal responsibility. To ensure our fiscal reporting remains both transparent and practical, we are reviewing the adoption of accounting standards other than International Public Sector Accounting Standards, or IPSAS, if these are better suited to our jurisdiction. IPSAS has become increasingly complex and can produce accounting results such as large unfunded healthcare liabilities that do not accurately reflect our fiscal sustainability. The new provisions will allow government to adopt alternative but internationally recognized frameworks that maintain accountability while improving timeliness, relevance, and cost-effectiveness in financial reporting. Mr. Speaker, we are also considering raising the threshold for mandatory independent technical advice on public-private partnerships and major projects from the current $10 million to $25 million. This adjustment recognizes the rising scale and cost of infrastructure projects and ensures that rigorous external scrutiny is focused on those of greatest fiscal significance. It will reduce delays and transaction costs for mid-sized projects while preserving strong governance for high-value or higher-risk investments. Mr. Speaker, we are also considering the debt principles under the framework for fiscal responsibility to ensure a fairer assessment of the fiscal capacity of statutory authorities and government companies to service their own obligations. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we are also considering eliminating the outdated distinction between executive and entity transactions within the Public Management and Finance Act. This dual structure has become unnecessarily complex and inconsistent with modern management practices. Removing the distinction will simplify accounting, streamline reporting, and create a single, unified financial framework, improving efficiency, transparency, and accountability. Mr. Speaker, together, these possible amendments will present a significant step forward in modernizing the government's public financial management framework. They will ensure that our budgeting, reporting, and accounting practices are efficient, transparent, and focused squarely on delivering outcomes that matters most to our people: stronger communities, a resilient economy, and prudent, responsible use of public funds. Mr. Speaker, government also intends to lead an economic and actuarial review of healthcare and property insurance markets to assess and explore the feasibility of national healthcare and property insurance plans aimed at stabilizing premiums, enhancing resilience, and improving access to coverage. This review will entail the establishment of a bipartisan committee to make its recommendations on the possibility of creating such a national offering. Let me repeat, Mr. Speaker. This review will entail the establishment of a bipartisan committee to make its recommendations on the possibility of making such a national offering. In layman's terms, Mr. Speaker, for the first time in decades in this country, we are going to establish a committee through Section 54 of the Constitution, housed within the Ministry of Financial and Economic Development, that is not just going to be government and then making a report to the opposition. That committee is going to include government members and opposition members. Our health care coverage and property insurance markets have been largely distorted by the fact that government typically takes all the risk while the private sector takes all the profits. That model cannot continue in this country. We must ensure that what we do in Cayman is best fit for our market and our conditions. And so, Mr. Speaker, I can tell this honorable House that shortly after the conclusion of this budget, I will be inviting a number of members on the government bench and the opposition bench to work collaboratively for the betterment of these Cayman Islands. That is what our people have elected us to do. Mr. Speaker, I turn my attention briefly to the Ministry of Education and Training's policy direction for the period 2026 through 2028. This is not merely a budget. It is a declaration of purpose. It defines the kind of Cayman Islands we are determined to build, a nation where every child, every learner, every family has the opportunity to thrive. This aligns squarely with the vision of the National Coalition for Caymanians to build a healthy, prosperous, sustainable, and inclusive Cayman where every Caymanian can fulfill their potential. We're empowering our people for a modern Cayman, one that is equitable, people-centric, forward-looking, and innovative. Mr. Speaker, our theme, every learner, every step, reminds us that education is not confined to a classroom or a stage of life. It is a journey that begins before a child enters a school gate, and it continues through adulthood, shaping the way we think, work, and contribute to our community. Today, I wish to speak not only about programs and projects, but about people, our children, our teachers, our parents, and our workforce. This is about the Caymanian story, our capacity to learn, to innovate, and to lead with compassion and courage. This budget underpins a clear course of national transformation through education and training. It is built upon the principle that education is the foundation of nation building, the key to social stability, economic resilience, and civic unity. Our Premier has said that we are building a stronger, fairer Cayman Islands, one where every Caymanian has the opportunity to learn, work, prosper, and live with dignity. That is the spirit that underpins our education and training agenda. Mr. Mr. Speaker, education is not an expense. It is an investment in our nation. A nation's true wealth lies not in its buildings or balance sheet, but in the capacity of its people, their creativity, their confidence, their competence. When we educate a child well, we are building a bridge from potential to prosperity. Every Caymanian child who learns to read fluently, comprehend what they have read, who discovers a passion for science, who creates art that expresses our identity, and who gains a skill that meets the demands of our economy, each one strengthens the fabric of our society. Our goal is clear: to build an education system that equips every learner to succeed in a rapidly changing world while remaining deeply rooted in Caymanian values, heritage, and community. Education is also the most powerful tool for equity. It narrows the gap that divides us, uplifts families, and gives every child, regardless of circumstance, a fair start in life. In our islands, where opportunity should be as boundless as the sea, no child should or will be left behind. That is why the budget commits this government to ensuring equitable access to a quality, well-rounded education system at all stages of learning. From early childhood care and education through compulsory schooling to technical, vocational, and tertiary learning, our policies will ensure continuity, fairness, and opportunity for all. Mr. Speaker, we also understand that education and economic development is inseparable. Let me repeat that. Mr. Speaker, this NCFC government understands that education and economic development are inseparable. The modern Caymanian workforce must be adaptable, innovative, and prepared for global competition. As we diversify our economy, we must diversify our skills base in technology, health, renewable energy, creative industries, and more. The education and training priorities within the budget are designed precisely for this: to connect learning to labor, study to act to success, and talent to opportunity. Mr. Speaker, as we look ahead, we must take stock of how far we have come. When I was minister 12 years ago, the Minister of Education pursued comprehensive reforms to improve standards, strengthen accountability, and modernize the education system. We launched national strategies in early childhood, curriculum development, inclusion, and technical and vocational education and training, or TVET. We invested in school infrastructure and enhanced teacher professional development. The education system has continued to improve. However, Mr. Speaker, this progress has also revealed real lessons learned. We have learned that education excellence cannot be achieved through isolated initiatives. It requires alignment across agencies, across stages of learning, and across sectors. Too often, our education system has been segmented. One policy for early childhood, another for primary, another for special education. The future demands coherence, unified, learner-centered systems that connects every stage along a child's learning journey. That is why the NCFC's budget takes a new approach. It brings education, immigration, and workforce development together under one outcome: strong education and immigration systems that support a highly skilled and adaptable Caymanian population. But, Mr. Speaker, those are fancy words. The reality will be the unity of purpose across government ministries, where we tear down silos and barriers, and we ensure that systems and people work together. In practical terms, that means ensuring every learner, from the toddler in preschool to the graduate entering the workforce, has a clear and supported pathway forward. Mr. Speaker, to realize this vision, we must also modernize how we work. The Ministry of Education and Training itself is undergoing a comprehensive restructuring to ensure that its internal systems, governance, and resourcing aligned fully with the broad outcomes of this budget. This restructuring will streamline processes, reduce duplication, and strengthen the connection between policy, data, and service delivery. It will also help us connect what we plan, what we spend, and the results we achieve for our students. We are bringing our key teams, policy, planning, finance, and performance, to work more closely together as one united organization that can adapt quickly when new challenges or opportunities arise. We are also investing in better use of data, creating tools and dashboards that will help leaders and schools make quicker, smarter decisions. By using automation and artificial intelligence to handle routine tasks, our staff will have more time to focus on what truly matters: strategy, service, and student success. By working smarter, using our resources wisely, we will strengthen accountability and ensure that more funding and support reach where they make the biggest difference: in our schools, for our teachers, and for our learners. Mr. Speaker, a strong foundation in early childhood is the single greatest predictor of lifelong success. I repeat, Mr. Speaker, a strong foundation in early childhood is the single greatest predictor of lifelong success. Research and experience tell us that by the time a child reaches the age of 5, 90% of brain development has already occurred. Those early years are precious. They shape language, social skills, emotional resilience, and curiosity. For that reason, there will be a review of the Early Childhood Assistance Program, or ECAP, to ensure that no family is left behind because of cost barriers. We are committed to strengthening preschool subsidies, expanding access, and supporting quality assurance across early childhood settings. Mr. Speaker, equity also demands that we pay special attention to learners with exceptionalities. The expansion of the Lighthouse School will significantly increase capacity for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities and ensure that facilities meet the highest international standards. But inclusion is not confined to one campus. We will establish multidisciplinary school-based teams across the education system, bringing together educators, therapists, social workers, and counselors to provide coordinated support for vulnerable students. When we invest in inclusion, we are not just helping a few, we are enriching the entire learning community with compassion, empathy, and diversity. This is what equity looks like in action: a Caymanian where every child, regardless of ability, background, or circumstance, can find their place in our schools and in our society. Mr. Speaker, quality education is not static. It must evolve with the times. Our world is being reshaped by technology, artificial intelligence, and globalization. The classroom of the future must prepare our children not to only find jobs, but to create them. This budget therefore commits to enabling modern, relevant, and future-focused education systems. To achieve this, we will advance the development of a holistic education policy, one that integrates curriculum, assessment, and student well-being across all stages of learning. This policy will embed the values of equity, inclusion, and continuity from early childhood through adulthood. We will also undertake a post-compulsory national needs review, aligning secondary and post-secondary offerings with the skills our country needs most in healthcare, technology, education, the trades, and entrepreneurship. And Mr. Speaker, this will be through the establishment of yet another Section 54 committee which will drive the offerings and funding by the next budget cycle of our post-compulsory education offerings and the requisite funding levels. We will modernize curriculum frameworks to ensure that Caymanian students meet world-class standards in literacy, numeracy, and critical thinking while deepening their connection to Caymanian history, culture, and heritage. Mr. Speaker, there will be an emphasis on teacher quality because the best education systems are built on the shoulders of great teachers. We will strengthen teacher recruitment, induction, and professional development to ensure that every classroom is led by a capable, competent, and compassionate educator. Diversity in teachers must become a true strength in our system once again. I can remember, and I know the member from Georgetown East will remember, this name in particular, great teachers like Mr. Dutton, of which the member from Georgetown East was his proud first qualified Caymanian accountant. You can clap at that, members. Mr. Baldo, Mrs. Hedger, Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. Sprague, Ms. Christie, Mrs. Jones, Mr. Tressida, Mrs. Flatley. If we look at just that snapshot of when I went through high school, Mr. Speaker, we see a diversity of English, Caribbean, and Caymanian practitioners. This notion that Caymanian students respond better to one nationality or the other must be debunked by this Parliament. It must be debunked by this Parliament because any of us who have been through our system know that we have met great practitioners of all backgrounds and nationalities across our education journey. We must be looking and recruiting from all sectors, all nooks and crannies of this planet to find the best, most caring, compassionate educators that we can find. And I can say that in the new system that we will pick up on the work of 12 years ago to hold educators accountable. Accountability must exist within our system. I am not going to tolerate hearing any school leader saying that they are going to simply evaluate practitioners as competent because they don't want to take bread out of anyone's mouth. With that approach, you are taking bread out of future Caymanians' mouths. We must get serious about accountability and the spending of public resources. Our children deserve it. Our children need it. Our country needs it. That is how we will build a truly great education system and have the outcomes that our children deserve. Mr. Speaker, when we support those who teach and care, we strengthen the very fabric of our society. Because behind every successful student stands a teacher who feels valued, respected, and equipped to do their best. We will expand digital learning infrastructures and provide modern tools for teaching and assessment while safeguarding the integrity of our education system against the challenges of a digital age. Our educators must be recruited from areas where they are equipped and or provided the training to use and deliver via the most modern technology and understand and can assist students in that delivery. Above all, we will foster a culture of excellence and accountability, measuring not only what students learn, but how effectively our system helps them to succeed. For too long, many of our young children have faced a difficult transition from school to work. Too many talented Caymanians have graduated without a clear pathway to meaningful employment. This is not a failure of our students. It is a signal that we must better align education with the labor market. This budget is built on the development of and implementation of a national workforce strategy and human capital development plan. This will provide a data-driven approach to identifying future skills needed and linking them to our education, scholarship, and training systems. We will strengthen the technical and vocational education and training pathways, ensuring that trades and applied professions receive the respect and investment that they truly deserve. We will also ensure that all the offerings across government is streamlined. We will ensure that when we have needs in tourism and needs in the trades, which is currently being delivered by the Public Works Apprenticeship Program, that those all be brought into focus and under one umbrella to ensure that we are doing what is right by our children. We must not have duplication of efforts. We must not have duplication of resources. We will establish apprenticeship partnerships with the private sector, expand on-the-job training, and promote careers in high-demand industries such as information technology, construction, health care, and renewable energy. We will also align the scholarship criteria with the projected needs of the national labour market, ensuring that public funds invested in higher education translate into meaningful employment outcomes for Caymanians. These are not abstract goals. They are practical commitments that will help our young people build successful lives right here in our Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, progress in education cannot be achieved by government alone. It requires partnership with families, with educators, with the private sector, and the wider society. That is why, in 2026, the Ministry will introduce the National Parent-Teacher Association, a unified body that gives parents and guardians a stronger voice in shaping education policy and school culture. This national PTA will serve as a bridge between home, school, and community, ensuring that every parent, regardless of background, can participate in the conversation about their child's education. This initiative reflects our commitment to people-centered governance. It reinforces the NCFC's belief that empowering Caymanians begins with empowering families. Parents are a child's first teachers, and when we engage them meaningfully, student outcomes improve, school culture strengthens, and the sense of shared responsibility for our children's success deepens. The Ministry will strengthen collaboration across agencies, particularly with the Ministries of Social Development and Health, to address the social, emotional, and physical well-being of all of our learners. We will deepen our partnership with the business community to ensure that training aligns with real-world employment needs. We'll enhance data governance, accountability, and reporting, ensuring transparency in how outcomes are achieved and resources are utilized. Education is a public trust, and we are committed to managing that trust with integrity, transparency, and measurable results. We will continue to strengthen the governance of our statutory agencies, including the Department.
Mr. Minister, sorry to interrupt you, but is this a convenient time to take a break?
Mr. Speaker, I'm about 5 minutes from the end.
Okay, thank you.
We will continue to strengthen the governance of our statutory agencies, including the Department of Education Services, public libraries, the Sunrise Adult Training Center, ensuring that they all operate with excellence, efficiency, and accountability. Now, Mr. Speaker, if we educate with excellence, if we train with purpose, if we lead with compassion, then the Cayman Islands will continue to rise, not just economically, but morally, culturally, and socially. Our goal is not only to prepare Caymanians for the jobs of tomorrow, but to prepare them for life, for citizenship, for leadership, for service. Mr. Speaker, this government's education agenda will be more than a policy platform. It will be part of a broader national movement to empower our people for a modern Cayman Islands. So, Mr. Speaker, this budget charts a responsible path forward, one built on sound financial management, practical investment, and an unwavering commitment to the people of these islands. It is a pragmatic approach that confronts today's challenges with confidence, grounded in the strength and resilience of all of our people. Through disciplined management and careful prioritization and responsible investment, the government, through this budget, is ensuring that our children's schools are equipped and our systems strengthened. This pragmatic approach puts the Cayman Islands firmly on the path towards a stronger tomorrow, a future where government remains financially resilient, our communities are supported, and our children inherit a country built on stability, integrity, and hope. I repeat, that our children inherit a country built on stability, integrity, and hope. With this budget, we reaffirm our collective belief that careful stewardship today is the surest investment in the Cayman Islands of tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the National Coalition for Caymanians government, I extend my sincere thanks to Her Excellency the Governor, my cabinet colleagues, parliamentary secretaries, chief officers, chief financial officers, and dedicated public servants, especially those in the Ministry of Finance, who have worked tirelessly in coordinating the preparation and delivery of this budget. Above all, Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank all those people in our beloved Cayman Islands for their enduring faith, resilience, and partnership, because this is a shared task of nation building. Together, guided with prudence, purpose, and faith, we can continue along a responsible path, building a stronger tomorrow. A tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, where Caymanians are better prepared to take advantage of all of the opportunities our beloved Cayman Islands have to offer. Mr. Speaker, before concluding, I would implore members that as we debate vigorously, but we debate with purpose. And that purpose should be about strengthening these Cayman Islands. Because in this chamber, while there are two sides to the house, out there is one Cayman Islands that we should be united in purpose in protecting, preserving, and enhancing. Out there lies the men and women who toil and have their being. Out there are the men and women who make up families along with their children that sometimes need support from government. We must build those social safety nets. We must build systems that work seamlessly. We must ensure that every day as we rise to toil and represent the people of these islands, that we are looking to ensure that every one of them can achieve the Cayman dream. By working tirelessly and diligently, we can rebuild the middle class, which, if we are to be truthful, has been decimated in this country. We must ensure that our most vulnerable families are lifted and given the critical assistance they need. If we're going to talk about driving down cost of living, I implore the members who will be on the committee to review national health care and national health coverage to work diligently and tirelessly. Check political differences and egos at the door, because we know health care costs are one of the single biggest costs to the modern Cayman family. And so if we can do a better job at seamlessly delivering those services and protecting our families in their time of crisis, that is healthcare crisis, and protecting their properties, just that alone will go a long way to driving down the cost of living and having Caymanians have more disposable income at their fingertips to take care of their families. This is but a start, Mr. Speaker, of ensuring we govern in a different and new way. It must be inclusive when it comes to national policy priorities. It cannot just be about the government hiring consultants or having strategy sessions and groups and then coming to the opposition and saying, here you go, this is the outcome. It must be about inclusion. And I can say that over this term, God willing, this is going to be but a start. There are 2 or 3 other major areas that I've already spoken to my colleagues about that we are going to be reaching across the aisle to ensure that the outcome is one that involves from the very beginning input from all sides of this House, because the fact is all of the solutions don't just rest on the government bench. There's way too much talent on the opposition bench to be put to waste. And the truth is, the country wants this. The truth is, the country deserves this. The truth is, the country needs this. I can say, Mr. Speaker, without fear of contradiction, this budget is one that is built on addressing the public's needs. It is a responsible path to a stronger tomorrow. It is one that is underpinned by truth, transparency, and honesty. I commend this appropriation 2026, 2027, 2025 bill to all members, honorable members of this Parliament. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Minister of Finance and Development, having completed his contribution to moving the appropriation financial years 2026 and 2027 Bill 2025, I now invite the Premier to make a short statement in explaining Standing Order 8015.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under Standing Order 8015, the House should resume the debate on the second reading no less than 5 days after today. We, of course, have the numbers that we could suspend that and rush to tomorrow. But in continuing in the spirit of cooperation to work across the aisle, we are going to keep in compliance with that standing order. And given it's a long weekend, so the opposition can do its research, and we have a wholesome and comprehensive debate on the bill. So in order to get there, Mr. Speaker, by my estimation, we got to take 2 steps. So I'll suspend 11 so that we could meet back on Tuesday coming, and then suspend 14-1 so that we could start at 10 a.m. rather than 2. So with that, if there are no questions, Mr. Speaker, taking them in turn, I move a motion that Standing Order 11-1, that the House agrees that the next day of sitting can be Tuesday, the 11th of November.
The question is that we suspend Standing Order 11 so that the House can resume on Tuesday, the 11th of November, to be in full compliance with Standing Order 8015. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Standing Order 11 is suspended.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now move to suspend Standing Order 14-1 to allow the House to start at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 11th of November, rather than 2 p.m.
The question is that the House suspend Standing Order 14-1 to allow the House to resume at 10 a.m. instead of 2 p.m. on Tuesday, the 11th of November. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Standing Order 14-1 is therefore suspended.
Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I now move that this House do stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Tuesday, the 11th of November.
Before I put the vote, I've had a request from the member for Bordentown West to make a short statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they say one of the challenges of small island politics is that just about half the country has the telephone numbers of all their representatives. And one of the advantages of small island politics is exactly that. On Tuesday evening, Mr. Speaker, I received a telephone call from a grandmother, a Caymanian grandmother living overseas, and she had an emergency. And I'll read her message shortly, but after she called me, I immediately called the Honorable Attorney General to get the number of his wife, because it was a newborn baby that needed to be air ambulance out, and we need to get the baby registered. I wasn't aware of that process. And of course, I called the Honorable Attorney General. I got him. He's always been professional, always been efficient, and also got his wife. And I'm pleased to report that after speaking to Ms. Cindy Jefferson, well, Ms. Cindy Bulgin, sorry, she sent someone to the hospital the same night to have the baby registered so the baby could be air ambulance out. And we're always quick to always, I guess, complain when government doesn't do something well. But when public servants do something well, I think we equally should also recognize them. I spoke to the mother this morning, the grandmother, sorry, on the way down to get an update. And she had sent me this WhatsApp message and asked that I read this message on behalf of the family with regards to what has happened in terms of the emergency. And the message reads as follows. Firstly, we would like to thank God for his mercy and for sparing both the baby and the mom's life. The baby was born at only 27 weeks gestation and weighed only 1 pound. Mom was in that CCU also. Our families want to thank everyone for their prayer, support also, and everyone who assisted in any way, including each of our families, and Mr. Chris Saunders, the AG, and Ms. Cindy Jefferson, Ms. Foster Belmaraj from the registrar, entire staff at the HSA maternity ward, all of the nurses and midwives from both CCU, maternity, and NICU have been really good. Critical care unit, HSA referrals office, passport office, Ms. Janice McLean and Mrs. Francis Jackson. Criminal records office, the surgical staff at HSA, Dr. Manoran, gynecologist from Integra Care, Dr. Jakes, pediatrician, Integra Care, the ambulance crew sent by the on-call team or the Lifeline Air Ambulance Transfer crew. And anyone else we may have missed mentioning, you're all appreciated. We thank you all for going above and beyond to ensure that our precious granddaughter has a fighting chance at life. When these things happen in times of the essence, and we thank you all. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to thank personally again the Honorable Attorney General and all of the staff. Ms. Janice McLean has always been very good in the passport office. And like I said, there are times where we always complain when work isn't being done by public servants, but this is a time, Honorable Deputy Governor, you can say that you have a world-class public servants that deliver world-class service, and on behalf of the family, I thank you.
Honorable Premier.
Just because I know, Mr. Speaker, the AG is too modest to stand himself, even if it's on behalf of his significant other, I want to thank the member for Bodden Town West for that touching and inspiring note of thanks. It also inadvertently helps me to make a case that I hadn't got a chance to speak to the DG about. Well, if the Registrar General, Ms. Cindy Jefferson Bulgin, is doing that, and in managing over 200 entities that are doing business in the islands, could we get our parking space in the garage? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Bodden Town West, in the spirit of recognition, of recognizing our Caymanians who deserve to be recognized from this honorable side. Thank you. The question is that this honorable House do adjourn until 11 a.m. Tuesday, the 11th, until 10 a.m. Tuesday, the 11th of November, 2025. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. The House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. Tuesday, the 11th of November, 2025.